But okay, we survived. We don't need to complain so too much. Many others have suffered. I think we should focus our attention now how to alleviate the problem of the poor, how to reduce this inequality, how to stop these excesses.
We are not perfect people, although most of us are angels, but even angels sometimes make mistakes. So when angels make mistakes, they turn around.
I think it is much better for us to have cultural diversity. Let 100 flowers bloom. Let 100 languages bloom. Let 100 cultures bloom. I think that makes the country richer.
Merdeka! 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 Merdeka!
The dark moments or ups and downs, but finally you believe there is room for hope.
Yeah.
There's room for hope, there's room for expectation, things will be better. And I think there's something to build on.
Right, so greetings and hello everyone. Welcome to the Lit Chat, where books come to life. The podcast where we explore literature and its connection to history, society, and identity. I'm SHERIMAN MARCONI, your host for today, and I'm very thrilled to be joined by 4 brilliant panelists. So for today, we'll be taking a deep dive into 2 Malaysian short stories, Karim Raslan's Heroes and Shih-li Private Tuition, and exploring how these works address the May 13, 1969 incident, one of Malaysia's most haunting historical moments. So first, before we begin, let me introduce our guests for today. Firstly, we have ZHOU WENTAO, an undergraduate student researching Southeast Asian literature. So welcome.
Hello everyone.
Right, and here we have Karim TENG, a proud Malaysian with great interest towards literature. Great to have you.
Alright, thank you very much, Sheriman. Hi everyone.
Yes, on the other side we have YIEN, an avid short story enthusiast. Thank you for being here.
Hello everyone.
And finally, we have ZHANG, a cultural critic who's explored themes of race and identity in Malaysian works. Happy to have you join us.
Thank you, Sheriman. Hi everyone.
Right. So, before we begin digging into the comparisons, let us briefly introduce the stories. So we have Heroes by Karim Raslan and Private Tuition by Shih-li. Both of these are very good Malaysian short stories. So their approaches to the topic, which is May 13, 1969 incident, differ greatly. So WENTAO, could you start us off with a bit about Karim Raslan and his short story Heroes?
Okay, of course, I'm glad to start. So, as I know, Karim Raslan is a famous Malaysian writer and social commentator who is well known for exploring themes of identity, race, and social issues in his work, and his stories often captures everyday life in Malaysians, but with a deeper look at how society and history shape us. And the story Heroes is a part of a collection of Heroes and Other Stories, and published in 1996. In Heroes, Raslan introduces us fathers, view of fathers looking back on his life and his relationship with his daughter, Farida, and it shows us the emotional aftermath, how ordinary people carry on with their lives and their silence, and this makes Heroes a powerful story because it feels so human and relatable to everyone's life. The heroes are not politicians or soldiers, but regular people in our daily lives. So in short, through this story, we can see how the May 13 incident left a deep and lasting impact on people who experience it, and through the father's memories and the way he talks about it.
I see. Okay, so that's a great point. What about the other side, which is Shih-li Private Tuition? Kayan, what's the story about?
Okay, first of all, thank you very much and WENTAO for sharing. So for my side, Private Tuition by Shih-li is a short story that's set in Malaysia, interviewing the quiet everyday life of a family with the lingering shadows of the May 13th, 1969 traumatic event in Malaysian history marked migration. Actually, this story follows a father who takes his son to a funeral, later revealing that the deceased ZHOU was his English tuition teacher. During the May 13 riots, the father, as a boy, was saved by Osman, who hit him and another Chinese boy in his home. So the story interviews this traumatic memory with the father's belief in education as a path to progress for his children. Despite his hope for a better future, his silence about the past replaced unresolved fears. The generational divide between the father and his children highlights how historical trauma is remembered, forgotten, or misunderstood in society.
So, what I understand from both of your explanations, can we say that these two short stories take the essence of the past lives of our predecessors, and then somehow tells us the story of how things were back then, especially during the riots, right? So, this is the topic that we don't actually talk often because you know how taboo it is, how sensitive it is to everybody. So I feel like this short story gives us a window for us to see or experience what it's like back then, their lives, or especially from the perspective of regular people, which to me is very, very unique in its own way, right? Okay, so again, thank you both for the insightful remarks. So let us move on to the next segment, which is to take the deep dive into the significance of the writer's approach to the topic. So I'm going to ask this question to Kevin. So, in your opinion, how does Raslan treat May 13, and what's significant about his approach?
Okay, when it comes to heroes, I would like to touch upon some of the issues that come up in this story itself. Firstly, the first issue I would like to mention is in regard into sometimes the truth should be left unknown, because the father of the story chooses not to tell the entire truth about what actually happened. This is because he wants to protect his relationship with her daughter, which is Fariza, which adores him as a hero. So if he were to reveal the real truth, it might cause Fariza to lose trust towards him. And when it comes to also the truth, there's also the part where during the story, Omar knows what Ayah has done that makes him lose his respect towards the father, which is the hero. In the story, in page 48, 932, he looked at me directly, something he never done in the past. He was only a driver, which shows that Omar was a driver. After all, his eyes were fiery red, burning with contempt. His mouth was curled into a sneer and he repeated the phrase one last time, lingering on the word dog, which shows a bit of a hatred towards the Ayah, which is the hero. Which is weird because in the story you know it's called heroes. But yet this person called Omar shows some kind of anger towards this person. On the second one, it could be, the second point would be combined together with another one. So it shows the act of patriotism as well as loyalty of a man. The patriotism in this story shows when the this Ayah person is working as a civil servant. He is a government worker who is trying to serve his country to his best. During the story, he has a task where he needs to send a document to the nation. I think it's an office, somewhere in Georgetown, where he shows that he's explained his responsibility towards Nazim, where he needs to take it seriously when it comes to work such as them in civil servant job. He phrased it out for reading page 3494. I stopped for no man. I had to press on. Hang Tuah who have approved of me. I never questioned. I acted on instruction whatever the consequences. He phrases the name Hang Tuah because Hang Tuah has seen in the folklore as a symbol of loyalty. But in the story, it shows that his loyalty towards the nation is also a bit challenged. But he still does it anyway, despite the consequences. So it takes us to another part where I'll phrase it. Ayah, who is given the task to deliver an important document, try his best to settle the task. Although there are a lot of challenges, including leaving Nazrin who gets beaten by the villagers. In the story, page 46, 923 to 28, the part says, "It's too late. We can't wait for him, Omar. Go with that command. I reached forward from the back seat and released the handbrake myself. Pushing Omar sharply with my hand, I forced him to drive off. If was just then, and he was speeding off, gathering momentum that Omar saw him, this boy that had been so swiftly discarded." Shows the part where this is how Omar knows that the Ayah, which is the civil servant worker, left a man called Nazmi, which is the one who accompanied him on his job to send the classified document towards the important document, towards the office. But during that time, there was an accident that happened. A vehicle ran into theirs, leaving a mess, and Nazri was taken by the villager. But during that time, Omar, I said the Ayah has an important task to really send the document towards where it needs to go. But during that time, Nazri was left behind. But even so, he did the sacrifice by completing his mission, by sending the document, even though that it means leaving the person that he knows. And that's why Omar, also during the first part when I said the truth will be unknown, because that he knows that he left Nazrin just because of a job, instead of saving him. And to me, that part seems like it's not very heroic, but at the same time, it shows that he has a strong patriotism and loyalty towards his country, and he will do anything, even towards sacrificing something for the betterment of his country. So that'll be all from me. Thank you very much. I'll let others will have talk.
So that's one of the most powerful moments is when the father has to make tough decisions during the violence encounter, and he's clearly terrified, and you can feel that he's guilty and for not being able to have nothing to get out. But it isn't about judging him, or it's about understanding how a person reacts when he really just face the dangerous things. And Raslan doesn't make the father a perfect hero, but instead he shows us someone who just a human and maybe have faults but trying to cope. What's special about Raslan's approach is how he tied the May 13th to everyone's everyday struggles, and the father's guilt and shame and his fear of being exposed, and even his inner battles with courage. And these are the things that many people can relate to themselves. So that's all from me.
So what the key takeaway from both of your explanations was that I believe that Raslan was pouring his emotions, and by sharing humanoid traits such as being, having this complex emotional and having to do tough decisions, I think that this kind of moral ambiguity in heroes is what makes it so powerful, right? Because Raslan isn't actually giving you the direct answer. Wow, this is like, he's not telling it directly, but he's showing all these complex emotions, the traits of heroism, responsibility, patriotism, and memory. All of this, I feel like there's what do you call the terms that we actually learned? Is it localization? Because when you mentioned hang tuah, involvement of hang tuah,
Yes.
I believe that he was trying to share some local ideas and also like make it global. So it's like localization, right? So interesting. So I'm actually excited to know more about revolution after hearing all that discussion. So we know that while Raslan reflects directly on May 13th, so Cal takes a more satirical and indirect approach. So ZHOU, what are your thoughts on how Cal critiques society?
Okay, so thank you, Sherman. So, well, for me, I think that private tuition is very special because it's a short story, of course, but it tells a big event, the May 13th incident, but it shows the incident by telling a small and peaceful family story. So, well, it's not like, a history lesson. So the writer actually critiqued the society by both a subtle and powerful way. So there are no big speeches or like dramatic moments. All the author focuses is what happens to the ordinary people when the history crashes into their lives. Like for example, the father. So he doesn't tell the story like he's a hero or the victim, right? He's just a normal small little boy, right? He's trying to go to the tuition, but suddenly he was chased and put into a small house and hiding in the dark with another boy, right? The moment is really scary, and you can feel the fear. And for me, what's even more terrifying is after this, his life is completely changed, and like his opportunities are lost, and his education just stops. And for the mother, well, she says these are ugly things we hope our children never see. So I can understand her because the parents want to protect their kids, but it just makes me think, right? If we just keep silence for the past, can we get a better future, right? I think that's also the writers try to ask people when they look at the story. And silence, I think, is just cause another kinds of problem.
I see. What about you, Karim?
Thank you, ZHANG, for sharing and also SHERIMAN. So actually, my point of view, I think that Shih-li critiques society in private tuition is through the generational divide between the father and his children. So why do I say so? Because the father, shaped by his experiences during the May 13 riots, carries an ingrained sense of cohesion and survival. He believes that education is the way for his children to rise above the divisions and trauma that define his own generation. His line, "You have a chance to be better," actually captures this sentiment. So, however, for the younger generation, which is the narrator and his brother Winston, approaches the world actually differently. The narrator, for instance, skips over the May 13 section in his history textbook, dismissing them as an unimportant part because there is lack of pictures. So this small detail reflects a broader societal issue, which is a tendency among younger generations to overlook or undervalue the gravity of past events. So Kao uses this to critique how historical trauma is often dismissed or inadequately taught, leading to a gap in understanding between generations. just like us, since we didn't go through that time, so actually we can't understand actually what happened and can't imagine.
Awesome. Okay, so thank you again for your interesting opinions. Okay, now we have explored both stories. So let's do a little bit of a comparison. How do Raslan and Kao differ in their approaches to the incident of May 13th? So let us hear from you guys.
When it comes to difference, I feel like when I hear from both panelists, I feel like there's instead of this difference, there's also a bit of a similarity. You know, there's a part where we say I called out the first point where the truth should be left unknown. Means there was like a part where certain truth about that day or the incident itself should not be shown. You know, for example, how the father abandoned Nazrin it doesn't look like an act of heroism, but part of it was also a heroic part where he committed himself towards his job as a civil servant and then sent in the important document to the location. But then somehow did mention the part that there should be this kind of like stories of the past should be not be left in silence. They should be brought up in the future. Oh, maybe it wasn't not the same way. That's the difference actually. Sorry, because our story about Karim Raslan's heroes focus more on trying to keep it a bit of hidden, like a bit do not reveal it. Whereas yours should be told that it has been told to others so that others may know about the incident as well as learn from it, right? So it should not be kept silent. Whereas our story, we talk about the Karim Raslan, he wants to a bit avoid about the truth, but at the same time, it is still in the end revealed in the end, based on by other people such as like Omar and Nazrin. So yeah, I think that was one point about I can talk about in regards to the comparison between these two stories.
So, like for me, I think, the heroes in Project Fusion have a great difference in how they talk about the May 13th, right? So, they all come from a family story, okay? So we begin with the family, the father and his children, and when it goes further, so I think the heroes, right, in the last part, it just confronts the chaos and violence directly. So it shows a lot of things, some brutality and some tensions between those communities. But for me, the Shih-li in the private tuition, she just focused on how the trauma just stays quietly in the family's life, right? So, like, she doesn't show the rise at all, right? So she's telling that the trauma is either remembered or not remembered by his family, because the father's telling the riots, right, during his hiding in the dark room, and he's telling the story in a very quiet and calm way, like he's also trying to forget it himself. So, it just like makes me feel that the pain is so personal and quieter, right? And I think the Shih-li does use a lot of contrast in her story, like the father's telling a story about survival, about fear, and his children actually having a dinner, and there's even like roasted pork and some boiling chicken on the table, and just a pretty normal thing, but the conversation is so painful and terrifying. So the contrast between the ordinary and extraordinary just makes the story so powerful. Yeah, that's what I thought.
I also like to add on that there's also a unique difference about these two stories, that it shares like two different perspectives. We can see from this Karim Raslan, it takes a more towards a view of our like in the more Malay side, right? Yeah, like we have Omar, Nazrin, Fariza, and then whereas for the story for private tuition, we look in the perspective of a Chinese, from a Chinese perspective, right? The father and the son, and the Winston, they're both like Chinese, right? And there's also a unique part. It shows that the effect of May 13 does not just affect one single race, but it affects both sides, both Chinese, Malay, or maybe if we have other stories, we could also include other races as well.
Because it's not like one-sided. It's not a one-sided thing, right?
Yeah, it's not a one-sided thing. It includes multiple races that were affected by that day, and we can see both from this story that it happens.
As from my point of view, I think that heroes is more, I can say, more really ambiguous tale, where healing seems distant if not impossible. So as for Raslan, he is a protagonist that faces internal conflict, but ultimately submits to the expectation of his community, suggesting that societal divisions are too entrenched to overcome easily. But on the other hand, As for private tuition, it offers a silver of hope. The father's decision to send his children to a school where there are a minority replace his belief in education as a tool for rising divides. So, however, this hope is tempered by the father's own silence, and showing that healing requires more than just opportunity. So, it requires open confrontation with the past.
I see. So this amazing perspective. I think I can group them in one single opinion. But I think that Shih-li Kao's private tuition and Karim Raslan's hero shows how the past continues to shape the present, especially when it comes to ethnic division. Because when we talk about May 13, we always compare it with ethnic divisions in Malaysia and relates it to how we are multicultural in a sense. And then especially when it comes to the story or Kao's story, they focus on the emotional impact of the riot itself, highlighting how the fear and mistrust of all the generation are actually passed down to the younger one, us, basically us. And what struck me the most is that the younger characters are not actually fully aware or fully understand the importance of these events, and they are still affected by them. So Kaos uses private tuition to actually show how these biases are passed on, even if they are not actually talked about directly. So to me, this just highlights how important it is to face history and learn from its painful lessons, so that we can work towards a more united future as a multiracial, multicultural country. In a similar way, I think that Heroes explores these different aspects of identity, ethnic, religion, and also national patriotism. Yeah, patriotism, and actually made me think about the complexity of identity in Malaysia, especially after the May 13th incident. The main character itself has their own internal struggle between his public role and also their private fears, which reflects the challenges that many people faced back then, the older generation, our predecessors. They tried to balance the need for unity and also the uncertainty of dealing with different ethnic groups. So to me, Heroes critiques somewhat our national identity, which has been shaped by unresolved historical issues such as, like you said, keeping the truth to yourself.
Unknown.
Yeah. So the characters are very complex and challenges the simple ideas about race and ethnicity. It actually kind of reminds me that identity is shaped by history, culture, and personal experiences, which I think should not be kept to ourselves, and also to be shared to our younger generation. Yeah. So both stories, to me, actually shows that we cannot move forward as a society unless we face and learn from our past, understanding that how it continues actually affects us and the future that we want to create. So yeah, it has been a very amazing discussion. Now, to wrap up, these two stories actually show us how literature can engage with history in diverse and meaningful ways. So Raslan's Heroes gives us a reflective and morally complex narrative. On the other hand, Kao's private tuition actually uses critique lingering divisions. So any other final thoughts from our panelists? So this is like a general question. What do you feel like after reading both of the stories?
I have to say that I'm impressed with the story for Heroes, how it depicts this man during that incident, which is like there's trouble between races, yet he's still committed towards his job as a civil servant, yet he's still that act when he abandoned his friend is like a very strong point in that story for me. Well, it's something that I feel like I would have second thoughts on doing it. I feel like I don't want to ruin my relationship with like someone I know, but yet it's something that I must do for my nation. It's like it can do something a bit traumatizing if I would feel like to do it myself. Just imagine if that husband was not your friend but your family, but you still do the same action itself to commit yourself towards your country instead of your family, the one that's very close to you. So I would say that was a very strong point for my story. For the Heroes,
these values like patriotism and loyalty, something that us as the younger generation should preserve, right, for our own countries, in order to secure a great future, not only for us as the Gen Z, but also for our later generations. So yeah, well said. And I think there are no more points. Anyone else? And with that, we conclude today's episode for the Lit Chat, where the books come to life. So again, a big thank you to our panelists for your amazing insights, and also to our listeners who are tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and share with your fellow book lovers. And don't forget to check out both of Raslan's and Kao's work, because it's really a good read. So yeah, until next time, and keep questioning, keep reading. See you.
bye.